ये बोला ही पूरा नेट एरर दिखा दी ना इसने। अब आया आगे 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 आगे। सिंगल इसको नहीं कर हम नहीं कर सकते। अरे हम जब ये स्क्रीन शेयर करेंगे ना तब दिक्कत इस पे आवाज क्यों नहीं आ रही नहीं है। नहीं आ रही।
You are always with us, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. How can I share? How can I share? Please allow me to share the PPT.
Yes, just
सर यहाँ पे नीचे आपने देखना 3 पॉइंट्स बने होंगे यहाँ पे 3 पॉइंट्स
कहाँ?
3 डॉट्स होंगे ना नीचे साइड में रेड बटन के बगल में जस्ट लेफ्ट साइड में।
Pardon?
देखो साथ दिखाई नहीं दे गुड बोल दो उजाला देखो।
सर जहाँ पे कॉल डिस्कनेक्ट का ऑप्शन होता है ना रेड वाला राइट में उसके बगल में 3 वर्टिकल डॉट है।
वहाँ किया then
प्रेजेंट वो करके आया होगा सर।
क्लिक करने के बाद शेयर योर एंटायर स्क्रीन।
no, where is the share? Share option is not there.
एरो वाला सॉरी एरो वाला सर प्रेजेंट नाउ।
Hello.
there is sir after the
hand.
Just one by one, just one slowly. Yeah. How can I share?
Third option from the disconnect button, red button, arrow upside arrow.
I think you can set the bottom there a few icons उसमें the arrow pointing upward उसमें click करो you just say I think that would be easier.
See the 3 vertical dots. I clicked and then I got full screen and all that, but there is no share option.
So you have to click the arrow upside, the second left, third left.
Third left, what is the third left?
Present now.
Pardon?
a box with the arrow upward.
Okay, then
Present now.
Then
Entire screen.
your entire screen.
okay, then
It will be
Then
visible.
click on the screen and share.
click on the
Click on the screen visible to you.
okay.
Then share. Yes sir. Share.
Sir, it is visible. It is coming now.
But PPT is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes.
Full screen करने के लिए
Yeah, you can slide.
Okay. Can I start?
सर full screen कर दीजिए।
Slide share.
सर
मीटिंग से slide share पे जाके full screen कर दीजिए यहाँ से। Yes. Presentation mode. Yes.
Is it okay?
इसको close करो।
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sir, just give me few minutes, sir.
No need of introduction. No need of
Sir,
introduction.
give me 2 minutes time, sir. It is my privilege.
No, please don't tell anything.
I don't tell anything about it. They know everything. So, okay, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. It is our privilege to have Padma Shri Dr. S. Sir as one of the speaker of the FDP. He was the Director General of Indian Council of Agricultural Research (ICR) and Secretary to Government Department of Agriculture He is Chancellor of Central Agricultural University, Manipur. Dr. Ayyappan is the founder, chief executive of the National Fisheries Development Board, Hyderabad. I am very fortunate to attend the inaugural function at Hyderabad. Child is the instrumental in bringing blue revolution in India. He is the author of many research papers, books, book papers.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
National and international awards. Still, he is very much down to earth, always encouraging scientific activities. I'm thankful to sir because he find out some time in spite of his busy schedule to give this lecture. Thank you, sir. Please, sir, now it is your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the kind words. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, our very distinguished colleague, Professor Reena Chakravarti, Senior Professor at the Department of Zoology, Delhi University, and all the participants for this particular workshop, to all of you, good afternoon, greetings, and thanks for this opportunity. I would be sharing a few slides on to-2023. Yesterday, my colleague Dr. J.K. Jaina, the Deputy Director General Fisheries in ICR, has already given the inaugural address, spoken to you. So I may not have anything new to tell you. But then since Madam Chakravarti insisted, I have come here now before you. So for about next 45 minutes or so, to bring before you a few happenings, a few points, and a few possible steps towards Fish 2030. That's the intention of this presentation. I request your kind attention. And then we all know that when we talk of food, it's the India first and the farmer first. And this message has to be very clearly with all of us, whether we are academicians or researchers or scholars or whatever. So whatever we do in our laboratories must be aimed at something more, adding to food both in quantity and quality. And then when it comes to fish, the kind of protein that it would provide at such a low cost. That's the intention. And again, at this time, we are at very momentous times in the whole of Indian agriculture, unprecedented pandemic, COVID-19 that we have overcome just now, hopefully. And in November last year, we became 8 billion, 800 crore people on the planet Earth, and also reverse migration, rural to urban areas, that was there. But then now, again, urban to rural areas, this kind of thing happening, and both challenge and opportunities. And now at present, the main focus is mainly on food and health, both together. At this time also, there are disasters all over the world and in the country. And then there are wars, there are impacts. Now we are left with just 7 years to the SDGs. I'm sure all of us know about the Sustainable Development Goals. So 17 of them, and only 7 years left. And we celebrated the 75 years of independence. And in this context, we have been talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-sufficient India, and India for the world. That's the discussion going on. So how do we enable all this? So in that context, the new education policy, national education policy, and science, technology, innovation policy 2020, both of them to be activated, to be implemented, to be followed. These are few vehicles that we have as possible options. Now, another important occasion is also the 2023 provides an opportunity for India to be chairing 20 countries, the G20. You must be hearing of various events going across the country. In agriculture, it was only last week. It's only a Saturday in Hyderabad. So everybody is discussing how we can come together when it comes to food, and particularly when it comes to marine fisheries or mariculture. It's the global waters that we also have to share. So all this to be kept in mind. And then this is the transition from MDGs, of the Millennium Development Goals, to Sustainable Development Goals I just mentioned. So in this one particular goal is also item number 14. It's life below water, specifically addressing fisheries and aquaculture. And at the same time, we also are concerned nearly 1 billion people still facing hunger, and then food insecurity. Then we know all those, and India also in the global hunger index. We are not very, very good. It's 107th rank out of 121. and the global south, that is mainly South Asia, that is Indian subcontinent, nearly 60% cannot afford a proper diet in the sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia. These are all the concerns. And in the pandemic, the demand was for more protein. At the same time, the climate imbalance. Recently, we saw the cyclone Biparjoy, which affected Gujarat, Rajasthan, Delhi, all those areas, and it's all attributed to this climate change, sea surface warming, and in that context, the climate risk index, we are quite high in that. So, seventh most affected country in the context of climate change would be India. So need to be extremely careful. At the same time, whatever food we produce, we are being asked to provide the footprints, how much water, how much energy, how much carbon, and so on. So for every ton of fish we produce, we have been given some kind of an estimate of something like a 100 plus kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we are not very bad in that. So we are quite good globally when we compare globally. So we need to keep in mind whenever we produce any food, what are the footprints that we are leaving on the global on the Earth, planet Earth. Now I've just mentioned 8 billion people, 800 crores, and when it comes to total food production is something like 3 billion tons. Don't worry about the other details. Just give you an introduction. So about 3 billion tons of food being produced, and if you look at the global food system, it's about $4 trillion. And then, fortunately, in spite of all the challenges, food production is increasing both on land and in water. So we have the agricultural land is continuously declining. That we should keep in mind. And then primary crop production is increasing due to productivity increase. At the same time, the workforce, people engaged in agriculture, farming, that is getting reduced. That in India also same thing is happening. So that is a worrisome feature. Now, when it comes to milk or meat or fish, for example, we'll be discussing in more detail. Now, these are a few figures of how we are dealing in the global food basket. At the same time, I just mentioned about the carbon emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions reduced by 4% from agricultural land. But in the farming, particularly, some kind of an increase is there. The whole point is when we are producing food, it's just not aquaculture or just the food production system. We need to be worried about several other things. Cost of cultivation definitely, but then mainly what effects it would be having on the climate with regard to gas emissions, temperature rise, and so on. So what is the message? Food requirement in another 20 years would be at least 50% more food need to be produced for the population. Climate change, I just mentioned, malnutrition, urbanization, aging rural population, natural disasters, food loss. Again, one third of the food we produce is getting wasted in different forms in the world and also in this country. Now, when it comes to Asian continent, we are more than 60%, nearly 60% of the global population. And of that, half of that lives in rural areas. And then when it comes to India, it is just 4% of the global water and 2.5% of global area. But what we are sustaining is 17%, nearly 18% of the human population and 15% of the livestock. Now that is the challenge. And then agriculture still employs 44% of the population of this country. That means we are now 143 crore people. And if we put together nearly 60 crore people still dependent on farming and agriculture. That is the importance when it comes to GDP, 18%. So what is the strength we have? It's the biodiversity, and India is one of the mega biodiversity centers among the 12 centers. So what we are having is something like 12% of the global flora and 7% of the global fauna. But the problem is also that due to various reasons, deforestation, soil erosion, desertification, etc., we don't have more than 0.1 hectare per capita. An average Indian does not have more than 0.1 hectare. That is not even something like 1,000 square meter. That is the kind of thing that we are dealing when it comes to resources. Now again, don't worry about this table. It's some details with regard to food production. But the point that we are trying to make is we need to double all the food that we produce in the next 20 years. Now, the point is, when we talk of food production, everybody talks of only food grains, 300 million tons of food and so on. But then our point is, we produce not only food crops, 300 plus, but horticulture, food, fruits and vegetables, milk, meat, fish, egg, so on. So it's about more than 980 million tons of food. Otherwise, this country could not have survived. And that is something like 43 lakh crore rupees, and that is 11% of the global and 23% of the Asian food production from the Indian subcontinent. Friends, this is the strength of this country. That's how we are able to survive. We are able to have workshops like this peacefully. And know several countries presently, whether it's Ukraine or Afghanistan or Sri Lanka, the kind of crisis they are going through when it comes to food. Fortunately, is not there in India because of the terrestrial and aquatic food production in different forms. But then the problems also I just mentioned, climate change, and then the World Economic Forum since 2016, for the last 6 years, have been discussing agriculture in different ways. Fortunately, we have a very huge domestic market, 143 crore people out of 800 crores. That's the dimension, and then so that's what we need to capitalize upon. And in the food production systems, what we are talking of now is from more from less for more, a shift from starch to protein to health foods, particularly after COVID 19. Everybody talks of immunity, the health, the protein content, and so on. That's where we are talking of aquatic food production systems. But at the same time, it is a lot of stress agriculture, secondary agriculture, specialty agriculture, and then it's a continuum of agriculture to food to nutrition to health to environment and employment. Then only we'll be able to justify what we are doing. And in that context, One Health, you must have heard about this, soil to plant to animal to man, it's One Health that we all talk of, not in isolation. And that's where we need a lot of skill and youth in agriculture. So the future of food farming is, it's not just the field crops or the horticulture, it's livestock, fisheries, agroforestry, all put together. At the same time, farmers want to be called as in different names. They would so we coined a word agripreneurs, like entrepreneurs. Now, at the same time, doubling farmers' income, whatever we are getting, you must be hearing about it since the year 2016. We have been talking of doubling farmers' income. That's where we are talking integration, diversification, clustering, and the input use efficiency. In aquaculture, for example, we provide the seed, the feed, the fertilizer, the water, and so on. So that's where we need to work on the input use efficiencies. There's a lot of basic research that's required, adding value. So now these are a few things, and then also the same challenges are emerging abiotic, biotic stresses, disasters. That's where insurance is being talked of, both in agriculture crops and in aquaculture. Now, what is it that takes to produce a kg of food or a ton of food? You will be surprised. 1 kg of 1 kilogram of paddy requires 1,600 liters of water. That is the kind of water demand. So in fish, we have been discussing how much it could be in aquaculture. So it's including evaporation, seepage, and so on. Fish doesn't not consume water, but the point is, so still water would be required. So we have said it's about 300 liters of water per kg of fish. Now this is what is the water footprint that are produced in different food production systems. That's where we talk of combinations, integration. So we have been talking to agriculture people. If you grow rice, only rice, the returns would be 2 rupees per cubic meter of water. But if you integrate with fish and other things, it could be 7 folds more, 14 rupees per kg per meter cube of water. That's the return in terms of rupees. That's where we keep talking of climate smart farming, whether it's weather or water or carbon or nitrogen or energy or knowledge. So in all areas, how to make our farmers smart, our food production system smart. That's the interest. Now, I'm sure you would appreciate this when we talk of footprints and the footprints in Indian agriculture. Now, the bottom left photograph, the top left photograph is Mahatma Gandhi and Madan Mohan Malviya, founder of the BHU, undergoing training in dairy training in Bangalore in 1927. So that you can understand the importance. And on the right side, you will see Norman Borlaug, responsible for the Green Revolution all over. Professor Swaminathan ji in Green Revolution in India. Dr. Kurian, I'm sure all of you must be. These names should be remembered and respected. That's why I'm showing these photographs. Dr. V. Kurian, who who facilitated the white revolution in this country. And don't forget Dr. Hiralal Chaudhary, who bred the first fish in Cuttack in 1957. And based on that, 10th July 1957. And based on that, we have started celebrating Fish Farmers Day from 2001 onwards on the 10th of July every year. That's the importance, these people have contributed. And now when it comes, when it coming to fish, particularly, you all know this, but I'm just for the sake of statistics, over the world, 3.3 billion people, at least half the population, depend on fish for at least 20% of their annual protein intake. And 60 million people, that is 6 crore people, are involved in fisheries and aquaculture all over the world. These are the world figures. When it comes to fish production, I'm sure Dr. Jaina would have touched upon this. About 179, 180 million tons, and capture fisheries about 96, and aquaculture 122 million tons. And then that's where you are seeing both marine and inland, 68 and 54. So about $424 billion of fish. So don't worry too much about these statistics, but what we require is at least the production should be at least by 240 million tons by 2050. And Indian fish production today is about 16 million tons, and we require about 30 million tons. That is, again, that's the doubling of all these fish production levels that we are talking of. Indian fisheries resources, I'm sure you must have heard since yesterday several times. 8,000 kilometers of coastline, exclusive economic zone, more than 2 million square kilometers. It would be increasing to about 3.5 million square kilometers, and then it goes on. So I won't go into these statistics, you would be knowing about it. Now, what we are interested is knowing how much fish is consumed. We have been giving a figure of 12 kg per capita in the country, but we don't have recent figures. That's where we are talking of some studies, some surveys. Those who are taking part in this workshop, in this program, also you can select some research topics. When you go back, we are interested that you also have some small research problems and projects. For example, how much is the fish production and the fish consumption levels in your district? So it goes on. You can see the figures. Now we have these figures, many figures for meat and so on. For fish, we are still working on some kind of estimates and guesstimates. So now what we assume is 60% of the Indian population eats fish. So that's where we think that about 10 kg per capita, maybe not be 12 kg, it's only 10 kgs, but the global average is about 16 kilogram. So we need to raise the fish production levels to that extent. Now you also know the food diversity in India, 17,000 recipes, of which fish, also has many, ingredients in these, and particularly in the eastern India and western, and also in the southern India, it's a lot of fish that is consumed in different forms. Now, what happened during COVID-19, the varied impacts on aquaculture, it caused migration, the youth, in different forms, labor and markets. So one thing happened was there was a boost in domestic consumption. So that, people talked of fish. So, and then, the perishability and all that. So the people could easily, and there was a problem with the export. So they immediately diverted to domestic market. So, but then we need to develop a taste for diversified products in the domestic market. Then some Swiggy models also came up for home delivery when it comes to fish. Earlier they were not there. Many startups came up with live fish supply in the metro. So these are some of the spin-offs during the 2 to 3 years of COVID time that we are trying to capture and standardize as models, possible models. Now this must have been spoken of. The second largest aquaculture producer, and growth about 6 to 7%. The recent figures of export, very recent figures, are we are exporting something like 1.8 million tons of fish and fisheries products. That is, we produce 16 million tons and we export 1.8. That means nearly 12%, and the export value is very high, 64,000 crores. It is more than basmati rice. So that is the competitiveness and the strength of the fisheries sector when it comes to global trade. Now, we have been talking of looking to the waters, because when we talked of food production, reducing land areas, increasing problems with regard to land-based food production. People have started to taking note of seas, the rivers, the canals, the lakes, the reservoirs, the tanks, and the ponds, and so on. So that's where we have the potential to easily increase it to something like 22 million tons by 2030. And these figures, just for your information. The fish is something like 1.24% to the national GDP and 7-8% to agricultural GDP. Now, what happened in the last 7 to 8 years are: one point is 16 million ton fish country. Second is the formation of the National Fisheries Development Board on the lines of the NDDB. Third is the Ministry of Fisheries. We never had a Ministry of Fisheries at the center, in the central government. Now it is Ministry of Fisheries and Animal Husbandry. Earlier it was a part of the Ministry of Agriculture. Three large schemes: the Blue Revolution, this must have been talked of yesterday, the infrastructure development, the Prime Minister Matsya Sampada Yojana, and now we are a very important component of the blue economy. The blue economy includes several other things: energy, minerals, several other things. But then fish has been now taken as a very important component of the blue economy, and also the National Fisheries Policy 2020 in place. Now, this must have been spoken of again. If I'm repeating, I'm sorry. I don't know what was the content there. The finfish diversity of India. The latest figures are something like, the native fishes 3,168 and exotic fishes about 500. At the same time, the shellfish diversity again, crustaceans about nearly 3,000, molluscans 5,000. So these are the strength of this country when it comes to aquaculture. The state fish declaration also was very important. Every state has declared one or the other species as the state fish, and that makes them responsible for conservation and then propagation and so on. Now, six-fold increase in fish production in 40 years, 100-fold increase when it comes to freshwater aquaculture. I would like to repeat this very important one. Earlier we used to depend mostly on the seas for marine capture fisheries, but freshwater aquaculture from the small ponds of West Bengal, Orissa, Assam, and so on. Now that has increased, and in the last 35 years since independence, there is a 100-fold increase in freshwater aquaculture produce, and that is now nearly 10 million, more than 10 million tons from freshwater aquaculture. Fish, like you can see on this is mainly due to freshwater aquaculture, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, and then it goes on. So marine is about 3.2 now. The latest figure is 3.4. The last week's estimate 3.4 million tons, and then inland is about 12-13 million tons. Now marine fisheries, of course, this is not included in the workshop. The mandate need to just have a quick the marine capture with mostly on going more than 3.56 million tons. So what we have calculated is it will not be more than about 4 million tons, 40 lakh tons. So whatever we do from the seas, we cannot get more than 4-5 million tons. So the rest of it, what we are talking about 22 million tons, has to come from the coastal aquaculture, the inland, the freshwater aquaculture, the cold water fish culture. So it has to be mainly aquaculture that is the mainstay in the Indian fisheries as we go further. Again, more marine fisheries, just for your information, but don't worry. But the point is, we have, as I said, more than 2 million square kilometers of the zone, but strength, our capacity to boat seas is also limited. So we are mostly within 100-meter depth, and we need to explore further with bigger vessels and so on. Now, when it comes to aquaculture, the potentials are all over. Mariculture in the seas, coastal aquaculture, shrimp, the cold water aquaculture in the hills, right from Jammu Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh. But what is important is the freshwater aquaculture all over the country, in any of the tanks and ponds across tropical freshwater aquaculture. Now, when it comes to mariculture, I'm now going only into aquaculture. The open sea cage culture, we have demonstrated 2 to 3 tons per cage. So it's possible with species like cobia, sea bass, pampano, grouper. And please note that these are all self-help groups, small groups, more than 500 in the 7 states operating now. So there is a huge possibility for edible oysters, mussels, finfish, then pearl culture, seaweed farming. There is a separate project on that. So it's a huge area that we are talking of. Something like we are expecting, can we get more than 2 million tons from mariculture? These are all high value species. So these are the species like cobia I just mentioned, the sea bass, pearl farming wherever possible, and then this is an important species when it comes to mariculture. So marine cage farming, what is being worked out is, can we cover something like there are potential cage culture zones are being identified with the with all the satellite enabled facilities right from Gujarat on the west coast to the West Bengal on the east coast. So several potential aquaculture zones are being talked of. And these are the examples, how mariculture is going on in different places. Similarly, marine bivalves and seaweed cultivation. And again, a huge possibility. Seaweed processing is a problem, but then we have to link it up with the seaweed cultivation. Oyster farming, I just mentioned, mainly the women groups, self-help groups operating on this. Similarly, the mussel farming in different parts of Kerala, Karnataka, and the southern west coast, particularly. Mussel farming in Goa, for example, these are just examples, but see the kind of growth in 6 months to 8 months. These are the kind of harvest. All these are high-value species, delicacies when it comes to markets. Similarly, the lobster farming in cages. This is just an example of the tribal people getting involved in cage farming. We talked of finfish, but this is lobsters. Again, very high value. You know about it. 800 to 1200 rupees per kilogram of lobster. Now, seaweed cultivation processing is being given emphasis. We have more than 60 species of different seaweed, but the potential ones are mainly the brown seaweeds for alginate, the red seaweeds for agar and carrageenan, and green seaweeds, the mainly edible ones. So these are being discussed for particularly for Cephalophacus, for example, for carrageenan extraction. And these are going on further. Nutraceuticals have been developed. Biofertilizers are being projected. So in the coastal areas, up to 50 kilometers from the coastal line, across along the 8,000 kilometers, is a huge potential for cultivating seaweeds and using them in different forms. It could be feed fodder, it could be fertilizer, it could be nutraceuticals, and so on. Now, what is it that we are talking of? Mainly, what is required is we need to enhance the seed production. That's the main thing. There are different species, pompano, sea bass. I just mentioned about it. Then SPF, these are specific pathogen free or specific pathogen resistant fish that's what are required now. And then also the recirculating aquaculture systems, integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. So these are possibilities where we can use the waste for biomitigation and recycling. These are being discussed. Otherwise, there are a lot of effluents being left to the seas. The whole coastal areas are polluted. So an intermediate is being suggested that aquaculture could come in as a biomitigation measure. So these are a few things about coastal mariculture. Now we are also talking of possible ocean fertilization, high value compounds, low volume, high value species, more species, including hilsa. You would be very happy to know this was a challenge, and over the last 8 years, hilsa has been domesticated, bred, reared, and the broodstock again raised, and then the whole cycle is completed. And these anadromous fish and migratory fish, it was a challenge for all of us, and then the whole country and along with Bangladesh, these are the two countries that are associated. This is what has been done. So similarly, aquatourism, aqua parks, and are all being discussed. When it comes to coastal aquaculture, it is not only aquaculture, it is agriculture, coastal agriculture, because 30 kilometers from the coastline, the lands are all saline. So how to address this area for profitable farming? So in that, we discuss with agriculture people also, and then we combine many things, that can go along with. And in this context, further, the brackish water aquaculture, about the different fin fishes, pearl spot, milkfish, mullet, sea bass, and so on. But then mainstay today is the shrimp, particularly the vanamei, the white shrimp, and that's where about 8 million, we are talking of about 8 lakh tons of the produce that are coming from. And these are possibilities of coastal aquaculture, but at the same time, the point should not be forgotten. Inland areas also. It could be Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, lot of inland saline soils. This has been a challenge. So aquaculture again has come in as a potential practice here, where they could grow nothing. Here, again, these shrimp farming has taken up. So many of these fin fishes are being introduced even in the inland areas with high profits. Now, as I said, the shrimp mainstay is the vename, the white shrimp, and so on. But still, there are 55 species of commercially viable shrimp, and that's what we are talking of diversification. Apart from the tiger prawn, Penis monodon, also we are talking of the Indian shrimp, Penis indicus, Indian white shrimp, smaller one. So we need to diversify. Otherwise, we have had a lot of problems with regard to disease incidents. White spot, for example, you might remember. After that, several other syndromes are coming in. So that's why we are trying a lot of diversification when it comes to coastal aquaculture. And in that context, it could be pompano like this, or it could be the scylla, the crabs, the sea bass, the other species that we keep talking of. In that context, people also have got interested with regard to organic aquaculture. Of course, salmon is not ours. These are a global figure. So, but here it's being discussed. The points are being discussed with regard to possible trout farming, possible carp farming as organic aquaculture produce. Now, this is where I told you about the organic footprint. What do we do when we grow? We might be damaging the mangroves. There's a cost for it. There's an environmental cost. When we reclaim areas for shrimp farming or whatever, there is a cost there. So this way also we are trying to address what is the cost, including that how can we be having aquaculture is all blue, but then we also talk of green, green aquaculture. That's where we are talking of carbon sequestration also. How much carbon dioxide is absorbed by these systems. So in the paddy system, which also releases a lot of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and so on. But at the same time, nitrous oxide and so on. But at the same time, a lot of carbon dioxide is sequestered, is absorbed. And that's what we are trying to project in the climate change and the climate carbon budget. Now we talk of carbon budget. Every hectare, how much carbon dioxide sequester is what is important. So we've been quantifying in different ponds and systems what is that the sequestration capacities for some of these ponds. And modification in shrimp farming, it could be low cost input, it could be modified zero exchange, or I told you about the inland saline soils, more than 90 lakh hectares of saline soils. Those who come from UP, Punjab, and Delhi area, Rajasthan, you might have seen, nothing would grow here. But then wherever there is water in those places, their pH could be more than 8, but still, some of the species of finfish here. That's why we are talking of these for inland because it's not just coastal. Low saline water technologies for the inland areas, or it could be high saline water technologies, depending on the salinity and the bicarbonate content and so on. Now, what are the key drivers in coastal aquaculture? There are 9 coastal states, 4 UTs, Union Territories, 65 districts, 2 island systems, Andaman and Nicobar and the Lakshadweep. 97 major estuaries, so it's about 3.5 million hectares of backwaters, 43,000 square kilometers of mangroves, 9 million hectares. I just mentioned about the inland saline water. More than 70 people depending on some of these things, and of which 4 million, but that is 40 lakh people depending on some of these aspects. So what we are worried and should be doing is we realize this full potential. 1.2 million hectares, we have used only 12% of that. And already we are at 8 lakh tons. So now can we go to 15 lakh tons? That is the discussion. And vename farming, I just mentioned. At the same time, we are still importing the vename brood stock. So how about indigenizing the indigenous specific pathogen quality maintenance? These are the points to be discussed. And when it comes to strategies, I just mentioned about it. I won't go into these details. The requirements of the seed, and then what are the hatcheries doing? How much more investments are required? For example, a projection of 1,000 crore more rupees for shrimp farming in terms of seed availability is being discussed. So here, what is projected is the integrated aqua parks. Can we have startups? Can we have the fisheries clusters? There the brood and seed, the cold chain, finally to the cold chain fish harvest. Now, this kind of integration, they're all there in isolation, but how to connect them for business as a business model is what is being discussed. Now, when we come to culture-based fisheries, inland fisheries, even their large tanks, earlier they were only being capture fisheries. But invariably nowadays, whether they're reservoirs or tanks, they're stocked. So to that extent, they become culture-based fisheries. And for that, recent investments are more crop per drop. So more and more investments into reservoir fisheries, the recirculated aquaculture system I just mentioned, and a specific component in the PMMSY with regard to the reservoir development, cage and pen farming, ornamental fisheries. And looking at, we have total about 30 lakh hectares of reservoirs. So what is being looked at is immediate development of 10 lakh hectares at least. And then cage culture as a major intervention in these reservoirs. And that's where these are some pictures of reservoirs from Jharkhand, where very, very good aquaculture cage farming is going on. And to that extent, you can see some of these, we call them as fish festivals. And it's seed to market approach, where the fishers, after harvest, they take the fish to the market. And this is, when it comes to freshwater aquaculture, I must say this has also must have been told, it's largely carp polyculture. The production, varies so much depending on the inputs. It could be half a ton, it could be 4 ton, it could be 5 ton. But what we are targeting is something like 5 to 6 hectare as a national average from about 2.5 tons now. And Pangasius, for example, could get us 20 to 40 tons. And then, so these points are being discussed. And basically, you know all about the 6 species. And this point I would like to mention, 1955 and 1957, I told you the first successes in the induced breeding of induced breeding it's not in open waters, they were, this is in closed waters in the pond system. And this was the first induced breeding in major carp in 1957 by administering the pituitary gland extract. And this again, this paper is very important. This publication, which came in Science, which came in current Science here in the Indian current Science in 1957. Just one page, it made all the difference. Now we talk of publications, the citation indices, the impact factors, and so on. But this one paper with Dr. H. Chowdhury and Dr. K. H. Alikuni on the spawning by hormone injection, this paper made all the difference. 1957, please. And this was typed and sent at that time. I used to discuss with them. So it was published in Current Science, and it made all the difference. Now, when it comes to culture system diversification, several things, variants possible. Polyculture in ponds, monoculture, prawn culture, integrated farming, sewage fed fisheries, you must be knowing about it, cage and pen, raceways, recirculated aquaculture systems, bioflocks being discussed recently, shrimp farming, bioval. So you name it, depending on the kind of agro ecosystem we have from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, or from as we call it, from Ahmedabad, whatever, or from Dwarka to Arunachal Pradesh. We have varied systems, varied resources. We have a system available for any kind of situation and resource available when it comes to carp or the fish or the inland, the freshwater aquaculture. Now, a lot of diversification that has happened, more than 70 species, bred and seed availability possible, and that's where is also the possibility for establishing hatcheries and startups and private entrepreneurship and business. So more than 3,000 hatcheries, the fiberglass reinforced plastic hatcheries, portable hatcheries, so all kinds of things. So now it's the 8 billion finger laying, 16 billion fry. What is being discussed is at least a doubling of that also. So in that context, a lot of standard work on fry and the spawn and the fry rearing, and then also the multiple breeding. You must have heard about it. It's 2 times, 3 times, 4 times in a spawning season, and extended spawning season when it comes to carbs, and then grown freshwater aquaculture in different forms. single cropping, multiple cropping, continuous stocking, because people are able to hold fingerlings in another rescue tank and adjacent. So continuous stocking and continuous harvesting possibilities. Then there's the catfish, again, the breeding culture, mostly magur, some singi, or the scampi farming again coming back. It could be up to a ton or more per hectare per crop. The pearl farming in freshwater, the integrated farming is the way forward. Everybody is agreeing to it, whether it's crop or the horticulture or the aquaculture all together. And then also the feed and nutrition, an important component. We used to have the traditional bran oil mixture, but today you ask for a feed, whether it's sinking or the floating, at very competitive costs are available, not only for shrimp but also for the finfish. And these are being used in intensive aquaculture systems, where very specific feed formulations are available. Ornamental fish as an enterprise, as an industry, has come up, and about both marine and the freshwater species, varied species that are available. So a specific program on aqua park and ornamental fish. So it's about more than 600 crore rupees that is projected as for ornamental fisheries across the country. So it is I just mentioned, huge potential. Trade value is more than 500 crores, and what is projected is 5,000 crores, tenfold increase for employment and again for entrepreneurship. Aquatourism is another thing that's being talked of. These pictures are not overseas, all Indian. The right top one is from Assam for sport fisheries, Mahashir. The bottom pictures are from a village near Pune and Mumbai, between Mumbai and Pune. Now, these, the farmer, agripreneur promoting the tourism, and so attractive, 1,000 rupees per day, and more than 100 people every day available on his 5-acre farm. Now, cold water fisheries, another huge fisheries, and mostly we also talk of aquaculture of some of these species. Right now, it is mainly rainbow trout and possibilities, but brown trout as we go higher altitudes is a possibility. Now, some of these species are being discussed. Now, next, coming to post harvest, I should mention this. I told 1/3 of the food is being wasted in different farms. Not just aquaculture; it is the total food. But in fish also, 15 to 25% is the estimated loss after we harvest. So it's about 1 lakh crore rupees of loss due to food waste, and that's where we are talking of secondary agriculture, primary to say some kind of a processing, primary processing, and packaging, and in that food safety and quality assurance also come in. And fish processing is a very well established industry, that. Now what we are talking of is there are new products that are coming up in different forms, value added products of fish, including nutraceuticals in a very big way. And that's where we are talking of good markets, standard fish markets. That's where the NFDP was working on standardized food markets, fish markets. And this I just mentioned what happened. And that's where we are talking about what innovation opportunities are there when it comes to fisheries and aquaculture. A lot of possibilities, individual innovations are taking in. For example, when it comes to water management, in different villages we have seen how people conserve water. Very traditional methods, but then very efficient methods. These are a few slides from different villages, or it could be floating horticulture, vertical farming, hydroponics that has come in, including for fish, recycling water for fish. This example, for example, for terrace farming, where they grow some of these food produce. At the same time, these are some pictures from Bangalore or Cochin, where the terraces are used for farming, and the wastewater is recycled for fish culture. Now, keep seeing some of these. And then next, what we are trying to work on is the new technologies. Still now, it was mainly the fish. When it comes to aquaculture, mainly it was broodstock rearing and breeding, and then seed rearing, and then growth. Went on like that. Associated feed and health management and so on. But now we require absolutely new data. There are potentials, and they have a lot of advantages and applications. For example, IoT in farming, the GIS, remote sensing, image processing, AI in a big way, deep learning, machine learning is being deployed already in shrimp farms, blockchain when it comes to shrimp trade, a lot of sensors and robotics for water management, and CRISPR, of course, in biotechnologists would know about it. And national fisheries policies over the years, last 40 years or so, we had these are the major policies. We had a charter policy that is, chartering the deep sea fishing vessels. Then we had the marine fishing policy, deep sea fishing policy, and so on. Marine fisheries. Then we had the inland fisheries policy in 2018, national marine fisheries 2019. Then aquaculture animal disease health management bill in 2019. Then we had a mariculture policy in 2019. But further, what was discussed was we'll amalgamate all these policies and have one comprehensive marine, inland fisheries and aquaculture policy, and that's where we have now a national fisheries policy 2020, enabling all those technologies, the projections for future. So all those have been incorporated in this policy. Now, as I mentioned, three major schemes for the fisheries sector development. These are the Blue Revolution and the infrastructure and the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. What is to be noted is a lot of emphasis now and the present coming 5 to 7 years on aquaculture, mainly with regard to infrastructure development, the seed develop, production, then supporting systems, including market reach and private investment in a very systematic way. Of course, we know most of the aquaculture is absolutely it is private. Now, what is new about private? It's all being done by fish farmers and entrepreneurs only. But what is now being discussed is it's like corporate farming, and more of public-private partnerships are being discussed. And to that extent, there are already many fish startups, fisheries cooperatives were there earlier, and this is what is important. Now, as a snapshot, what we are talking of today is something like, as I said, 140, it was in 1819. So in the next 2 years, can we have it 22 million tons? Today we are at 16 million tons. So the growth rate, projected growth rate is 9%. Aquaculture productivity to be enhanced to 5 tons, and exports from whatever, that was 19. But as I said, today, 64,000 crores. Can we make it 1 lakh crores? Post-harvest losses can we reduce from 25% to 10%, and employment generation. So these are all some projections when it comes to fisheries and aquaculture. Now, investment opportunities in aquaculture, like in saline and brackish water, reservoir, I just mentioned, sea cage farming, seaweed farming, ornamental fisheries, bivalves, and technology-based aquaculture, support services, a number of them. People keep asking, where can I invest? What are the possibilities? So we have listed all of them, like brood banks, hatcheries. Just aquaculture inputs themselves can be one area. Broodstock multiplication, nucleus breeding centers, contract farming centers. No, let me tell you, the agriculture areas are all getting saturated. But in aquaculture, still huge possibilities when it comes to enterprises. So similarly, value chain handling in harbors and landing centers, the cold chains, processing infrastructure, the markets, new markets that we need to have, and then a subsidiary, it could be boat building to safety appliances, for example, aquaria, aerators, it goes on. So the why I'm mentioning this is, finally, these programs, this UGC program and all that should lead to, of course, good research. At the same time, some kind of enterprise. So whenever people come to you, don't say you don't know. I mean, there are many centers that you can guide them to. At the same time, you can also start working with them. And since you are located in different places across the country, it's important that you carry home some messages and then the possibilities in aquaculture. It need not be always having a pond in a tank and a fish, and it need not be. It could be many other, some of these things that I mentioned. And these have great scope as we go along. And that's where we talked of agribusiness incubators. Now, this workshop that you are having, I believe, is also a kind of an incubator. And now, agri startups. Today, there are about 75,000 startups in the country total. Of them, about 10% are agri startups, 7,500. And we believe at least about 5 to 6% of them are in fisheries and aquaculture. So they need to be enhanced, and there are immense possibilities. Now, agri startups provide that missing link in the agri value chain. And again, I don't want to repeat. These are all successful agri startups colleagues. And then the agri business system provides for inputs, production, processing, marketing, and support systems. All these are available in aquaculture also. So main domains of agri startups in India have been looking into big data analytics, farming, market linkages. So it goes on. So I won't read all these slides, but then the point is there are any number of areas. It is only your idea, innovation, and some kind of course, it has to be some lot of effort, and you could make a change in aquaculture also. We listed again for the purpose of agri startups several areas. I won't repeat them, but then you look at small links in the whole supply chain and the demand side. You can come up with a varied number of possibilities in different locations. See, what is standard in Delhi need not be applicable to Calcutta. So there are many. For example, in Delhi, the fish come from Gujarat all the way. Pomfrets, for example, sear fish, for example. But then there are also people. So that was a huge supply chain where middlemen were so many. Now the agri startups are making a change in terms of aggregation. They're using IT, inputs, and they're able to make a change. For example, so in this context, what we are talking of is something like from the farmer to the entrepreneur to the exporter. So can we have this kind of a arrangement, some kind of a contract farming, or some kind of buybacks and several other possibilities. So these models are this is just an example, but these could be customized, modified to different locations in various forms. Now, coming to the last few slides, friends, since they are all many researchers, what I would like to mention is this slide. I always make it a point. Now, what is the research intensity in the country? Now that when we discuss these Department of Science and Technology figures, now we are not more than 255 researchers. It is not only scientists, it includes university teachers, professors, postdoctoral fellows, everybody. So we are not more than 255 per million population. So 255 into 1430, 143 crores. Now what? It is not more than 5 lakh. So we are not more than 5 lakh researchers in all areas, aerospace to energy to industry to agriculture to everything. So we are not more than 5 lakh people doing research in this country. Now, in that also, if we don't concentrate, if we don't focus on important areas, we simply would be wasting our energy and time. So whether you do your own research or you allocate topics to the PhD students, please make sure that we address only important, critical, frontline, frontier areas, not wasting our time in repetitive research. And for example, in aquaculture, for example, we don't have more than 500 people across the country. Or when even if you double whatever, we are not more than people. So something like the 1,500 people per million population research, whereas we are 255, 1/6 of it. In that also, we keep wasting our efforts, resources, time, money, and so on topics not very important. I don't generalize it, but request at this workshop is kindly focus on important areas, kindly collaborate, and kindly join hands with as many people as possible, because alone it's just not possible in present day to achieve results and to show results, demonstrate important achieve accomplishments towards enhancement of food production. So this it's very important that kindly note this aspect. So what we are trying to do is the new education policy is an opportunity. Agriculture, please remember, includes fisheries and aquaculture. So can we introduce it in school level itself? Some amount of agriculture in schools, in colleges, so that they become entrepreneurs and not just degree holders. So this is what is the interest to attract and retain youth in agriculture across the country. Now, what is the foresight? Finally, yesterday Dr. Jana might have told you, so 22 we are 16 million tons. Now 25 we should be 22 million tons, and 2030 we should be 30 million tons. So we have broken into all this. So what comes out is capture whatever we do will not give us more than, in any case, it does not give them something like 8 million tons of the 30 million tons. So rest of the 22 million tons are more than 20. So 20 million tons, to be conservative, has to come from aquaculture. in different forms, 20 million tons. And coastal aquaculture also, as we know, it cannot give more than 2 million tons, and mariculture also not more than 2 million tons. So not more than 4 million tons in aquaculture from coastal areas. So the challenge is 16 to 18 million tons of fish has to come from the inland areas. What we mean is the tanks and ponds, and maybe to some extent small reservoirs. Now that's where we need to have all the new sciences brought in, not just fisheries science, all the other, as I said, new technologies, and a lot of innovations to be brought in, a lot of entrepreneurs to be brought in, and more investments, market linkages, the quality. What is required is also food safety and quality, and along with that, the environmental footprints. So for every ton of fish, now there will be a label about how much is the carbon footprint that you have left. I won't repeat it. So we are entering into a very challenging times that the research has to address all these aspects, not just I bred a few fish. No, it doesn't help. It has to be an all-round application approach, wholesome approach to fisheries and aquaculture. So with this, I would like to thank you for your kind attention. So in Bhubaneswar, we coined this word: grow fish and grow fish, grow with fish. So I wish many of you do it. So thank you very much once again, and I would like to thank Professor Reena Chakravarti once again. And I would end here and request any questions, comments, opinions, suggestions at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your very enlightening talk. And you have started from the culture, and then value addition, then marketing, productivity, everything. Even the project formulation, which area we should go. So it is really a lecture which is guiding us, will guide us in many ways. Thank you, sir. And if you have any question, now it is open for questions.
How do I stop sharing? How do I stop sharing slides?
Slides. Okay.
You can stop sharing.
सर यहाँ पे जहाँ से आपने शेयर करा था वहीं पे स्टॉप हो जाएगा, वो एरो पे ही जहाँ पे आपने स्टार्ट करा था
आप स्टॉप कर लीजिए. Should I close?
Yes, you can close it.
Can you stop sharing?
काट ऊपर सर, ऊपर में जो काट है उसमें क्रॉस कर दीजिए. ऊपर में देखिए क्रॉस है ना, उसमें इसमें
कर दिया. Thank you very much. अभी am I now visible?
Yes, sir.
Am I now visible?
सर ब्लू वाला में चाहिए सर. ब्लू वाला सेंटर में आफ्टर दी पाम वाला साइन है ना सर, उसके बाद वाला ये जो है ना हाथ वाला साइन, उसके
हेलो, हाथ वाला के पास ब्लू वाला बॉक्स विद द एरो, उसमें जाके क्लोज कीजिए.
yes.
Stop presenting. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now you can ask questions, whatever you want to ask. Sure. आप लोग पूछो. पूछो भाई.
Any comments also?
Any comments? What out?
Sir, it was there related with the seaweed production in India.
Yeah.
Has it been used for human consumption? Because as per the product which you have mentioned, it's like feed for animals, etc. So though we know it's been used in other countries like China, Japan, Korea, is it used in India, and how they are processed? Seaweed, sir.
Thank you very much. Most of our seaweed production with regard to edible portion was the production of agar and alginate. Okay, alginate has been used in many of the confectionaries and so on. But in unlike Korea or Japan, where they use the seaweed per se, for eating directly, we have not used. Sometimes now there's a trend in the trendy hotels where they provide some amount of seaweeds in different forms, along with like tuna, sushimi and so on like that. But then the point is direct seaweed consumption is not in practice, but it's used in different forms as ingredients in some of the confectionaries and bakery products. But all these are edible, and that's where we are talking of new possibilities, new food items. Nutraceuticals, of course, is a proven seaweeds are a proven source for nutraceuticals and good bioactive compounds.
So I could see some seaweed in the market, like INA.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. You please eat. Please eat. But of course, our habit is we use salad, but then we put so much of pepper and salt. The original seaweed taste is gone. Whereas in Japan they eat raw seaweeds, but then we don't like the smell or whatever. But then you can try.
Why did you take पूछो भाई किसी का कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछो या
Sir, you said that we should not be doing the repetitive researches. There are many new areas on which we should focus on. So, what is the most important area, according to you, on which the research should be done?
Where are you from?
Sir, I'm from Delhi University only. I'm a Reena ma'am's student. PhD.
Okay, no, but when you go back, well, it depends on the location where we have site-specific research as possible. When I said repetitive research, also, there are different kinds of research: basic, applied, anticipatory, strategic, futuristic, and so on. It goes on. The list goes on. So what we feel is wherever you are located, look at your situation, your resources available. Then what is the most important problem that you face? Not you face means in the sector. What is the most important problem that for us the people, our clients are farmers. So what is the burning problem for a farmer? Kindly ask him. It requires a lot of stakeholder consultation. One is review of literature, definitely, but second is in this country, given the research intensity, stakeholder consultation. Ask them what is bothering you and what cannot be solved by you yourself. Because 24/7 farmers are doing with their enterprise. So I cannot claim that I am better than a farmer because 24 hours he is there. Whereas I am a office researcher, 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 and 2 days break, 5 days a week and all that. So you need to have a lot of discussions with the stakeholders to find out what are the critical issues. For example, in freshwater aquaculture today, I would say water budgeting. Now, water is going to be highly scarce because we are all very happy just taking very casually, but water is going to be the issue. So in that context, we have the blue water, the green water, the gray water, and so on. You know that. So there are different the pollutant sources. There are several kinds of water. So can we make them fit for aquaculture? That itself is a big research issue, where it starts with LD50 in the lab of different fish species, then it goes to dilution, then it goes to identify it as a quality source for freshwater aquaculture and so on. Next is domesticating more species of fish and see that we accomplish. For example, this Hilsa breeding took more than 7 years. It is such a complicated subject, both basic research and in the field that has to be combined. Now, next is we have a lot of emerging diseases. Fortunately, in the animal sector, there are a lot of people working on all these detection kits. Today, the vaccines are being, after the COVID-19 particularly, there's so much of, glut of vaccines, I must say. But in fisheries, the same thing is not happening. Mainly, there are many things. The immune system in the fish is not as developed as in the higher vertebrates. So there are many other issues. So you need to look at all these things and do something so that in 3 years' time, you should publish or bring a technology or a patent or forget about all this. Just the farmer should feel very comfortable that you made a big change in my practice. So think about those things, and if you spend time on, I would say that identifying a good topic itself is 50% research. We start with something and go on and on and on, but it doesn't help. If you spend time on identification of good research theme and topic, you would have done it, you would have crossed half the way. So kindly look at these possibilities. Thank you.
Jitu, you want to ask anything?
Yeah. Professor Ayyappan,
Kindly introduce yourself.
my name is Dr. Jitin. I am from Deshbandhu College. I worked as an assistant professor.
Which place? Which place?
Deshbandhu College, University of Delhi.
Delhi. Okay.
My question is maybe it's a little away from the theme. So, is that possible that in coronavirus we have the host like bats? They arises from the bats basically. That's the theory. So, is it possible that fish can be an intermediate host for a virus?
Fish can be activated.
No, fish can be a host for a virus, like reservoir host.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So trying your zoonotics, possible transformation from the animals to human and so on. That's the area, right? And that's where I said, fortunately or unfortunately, whatever, the aquatic viruses. Of course, there are a lot. Now recently, they're matching all the kind of whatever scanning they're doing. They're trying to match the aquatic viruses. Still now, fortunately, have remained a little different because pet viruses have been combined with, have been compared with aquatic viruses, because people raised a question: if I keep the pets, I keep the cats and the dogs and so on, and there are instances of the viruses getting transferred to humans. So in the same context, the fish was also discussed, and fish was also scanned. Fortunately, we have not come across similar sequences when it comes to fish viruses. But then let's not take anything for granted. Viruses are so virulent that they can get to any stage. So that's where we talked of One Health program. One Health: soil to plant to animal to man. And soil does not mean soil; it is soil and water. So that's why we are talking One Health program, so that all of us come together and look for any threat from any source for human beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There is a question. Anyone interested? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for spending a nice time and inviting us. Thank you. And I want to see you in physical mode of our department. Sometimes you have to find out some time. In our next program.
Thank you very much. Let me tell you, friends, Professor Reed Secretary is a 24/7 professor. She doesn't do anything else except teaching and research. So fortunate that you are with her. Thank you very much, madam. Thanks to everybody. Namaskar. Namaskar.
चलो 5 मिनट तो सांस लो